Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar from the Mary H. Weiser Food Allergy Research Center at the University of Michigan. We have created this monthly webinar series to help patients and their families cope with the psychological and social challenges of living with food allergy. As the licensed clinical social worker on staff at the U of M Food Allergy Clinic, I meet with all of our patients and provide them with skills, tools, and strategies to manage stress, anxiety, transitions to school, socializing, and more. My role was established through a gift from the Weiser Food Allergy Research Center, where advanced biomedical research into the origin and treatment of food allergy takes place every day. The center, founded only 5 years ago, recently was named a Discovery Center of Distinction by the advocacy group FAIR, and was added to FAIR's prestigious network of research institutions. Our clinic, whose physician scientists partner with the research center, is one of only a handful nationwide to be able to include a full-time allergy counselor. You can learn more about what we do, the Weiser Center, its founders, faculty, and its important scientific work by visiting uofmfoodallergy.org. Today, we'll focus on skill building for teens with food allergy. Let's start with a poll question. We always want to know who's with us today. So if you can let us know just more about who might be watching, who might be attending. Are you a person with food allergies yourself? And then we're interested to know, at what point in your life, what kinds of challenges you might be facing. So are you under 12 or 13 and older? We do often have parents join us. So if you're the parent, we really want to hear from you. Please send us questions through the Q&A. We'll be taking as many questions as we can, and we always welcome those. So it looks like our poll results are, so parent, guardian, caregivers, of someone under 12. So that's about a third, and then people over 13, over half. Nobody with a food allergy themselves, so it looks like it's the adults in their life who are with us, and some professionals who work with food allergy patients. So we're really happy to see that. Thank you. And just change my view here. Excuse me. So some of the challenges we know, developmentally, the things we're preparing teens for are being able to assume more independent management of their food allergy. So, of course, from the time that they're diagnosed, the parents are really the ones managing. They're the ones really watching, guiding, and protecting. Then it comes the time, perhaps middle school, high school, where we really want to see the teens, the preteens, start to get those skills that they're going to need to feel that they can navigate situations safely and perhaps more independently, so that by high school, they, of course, were looking at more time away from home, new situations. So dating, dining out, being with friends, those are all really opportunities for new skills, but also can bring up some real challenges. We know that these present opportunities for risk, but also opportunities to be able to engage in life. So at the allergy clinic, we always talk about wanting people to have, the most expansive life that they can. We want the patients that we see to be able to take part in activities and do everything that their peers without food allergies are doing. But to do that safely, you need to have information and you need to have skills, because there will be challenging situations that come up. And unprepared teens do encounter a lot of risk. So today we're really going to focus on, yes, looking at there is risk, but what control do you have? And the control that you have is to really gain strategies. So our preteens, teens, and young adults can be gaining the strategies. They can be practicing while they have that safety net of being in the home, close to home, with their parents, so that they've had practice and confidence before they have to go do these things themselves. There are also strategies for parents, because you are, as we say every time we talk in our webinars, primarily parent is the coach. So this time we're really going to look at tips and strategies as the coach. What are the things that you can be reinforcing? What are things that you can be saying? What are opportunities for practice, even during the pandemic? So we estimate over 8% of teenagers live with food allergies. We know that teens need to have opportunities, just like throughout life they've been learning new things, and you've given them opportunities to practice, from learning to tie their shoes, learning to ride a bike, learning to go to school. They continue to need opportunities to be able to practice taking on new things. And in this case, practice taking on the tasks of allergy management. We're going to talk about each of those, from planning, preparing, ingredient, label reading, carrying the epinephrine, being prepared to self-administer. So how can parents successfully transfer what you know and what you are practiced in doing to your teen? So parents can successfully transfer this information and skill set. So we want them to continue to have what you've been able to provide them: allergen avoidance and treatment of symptoms when necessary. So we know that teens are they are in the high risk group, teens and young adults. So from 18 to about 30, teens and young adults are in our highest risk group for very severe and highest risk for fatal reactions. And so we need to take this very seriously. We need to talk about it like it's seriously with our teens, while doing so in a way that doesn't paralyze them with fear, or that they just shut down so they're not feeling that it's possible for them to be safe. Because with teens, then if they don't believe that this is something that they either are interested in learning or think that they're capable of doing, they could just tune it out. And then we don't get them engaged. And so they can be more in a place of disease denial and just hoping for the best. So let's look. We really want to know, what are some of the primary concerns you have at this developmental stage with your young adult? So the big ones we hear at the clinic are, I'm afraid to eat at restaurants, I'm afraid to dine out. I couldn't do that safely, or our family has never done that. So it's really something I'm uncomfortable with. Are you worried that they'll vape or smoke, and what that might mean? Are you worried that alcohol use or experimenting with substances, in addition to the concerns you would have, also concerned, what does that mean in terms of their judgment and the risk factors? And kissing. So, we're preparing for them to know how to spend time in relationships, learning how to navigate a great many things around that. But can they will they be knowledgeable, and will they know how to keep themselves safe with, close contact and kissing? So it looks like kissing is at the top of our list today for the things that the concern in terms of what might happen, and information needed. Drinking, and it looks like drinking is even with eating out. Can they dine away from home safely? Vaping is low. So let's move forward and let's look at some skills for each of these areas of concerns. So let's just dive right in. We know that alcohol, for any teen and young adult and adults, so alcohol impairs judgment. Why is that a greater issue for our food allergy individuals? The allergists really talk with their patients in the clinic about, okay, what does that mean? Yes, it's going to alter, your mind, and it's going to affect your judgment. But how does that make you more at risk? So what are some things that could be caused by that? So things that they don't know that come out in discussing are, so in the impaired judgment, what you aren't going to be doing that you would normally do. I'm not going to be asking questions if somebody hands me something to drink. Do I know what ingredients are in different kinds of alcohol? Do I even know what kind of alcohol I'm drinking? If they pour you a mixed drink of some sort, it's not something that has a label on it. If somebody asks me if I want to try something, do I know enough to know what's in this drink? What might be the hidden allergens? So alcohol often contains hidden allergens you would not suspect, and they aren't going to be, because they're not practiced even at, this drinking, trying new things. Are they also going to be checking and really looking at, am I doing this in a way that even helps me to stay safe? Then as I become impaired, judgment's going to go out the window. I'm not going to be asking questions. And at that point, I could be really putting myself at risk. So people will often be very surprised when we talk to them about the hidden allergens. They'll also be surprised to realize alcohol can increase the reactivity for a reaction. So if you've used substances, then you come into contact with your allergen, the reaction you might have could be very accelerated, and very different, out of proportion for what you might experience had you not been drinking. So we don't often hear from teens that they realize that. So these are things for the parents, the adults in their life to be talking about. So along with the conversations we have with our kids around how are you going to navigate these things, because they will come up, if not in high school, in college, or in adult life. What's your plan? What do you know? Let's talk about what you know, and let's see where the gaps in knowledge might be. And then let's talk about, other than just saying, no, don't do it. We really want them to have the information. We want them to know more than don't do it, keep yourself safe. Because what if they do it anyway? We want them to know for them why it's more problematic. So our patients with food allergies who also have asthma, increased risk of a accelerated reaction. Also with vaping and smoking. So with vaping and smoking, when you ask, have you tried vaping? Have you tried smoking? They may or may not, be totally upfront. But what you can talk about is, well, what I want you to know is, so if somebody hands you something, if they are vaping and they hand you their vape pen to try, in addition to the risks of vaping, do you know why that would be especially problematic for you. And it's surprising to, they haven't thought that out. So it's exactly like kissing. Anything that person who had who was vaping before you, if you share that, you are putting that in your mouth. You are then going to ingest whatever that person had, whatever residual amount is on when you take it and it goes into your mouth. So they don't think about that now, without asking any questions or any information, I now have put myself at risk of ingesting my allergen. So as with kissing, really thinking it through about, okay, what does this mean for me? What am I going to have to think about? What do I need to be aware of? What do I need to ask? What questions do I have? And we'll talk about kissing more in a minute. So one place you can go for more detailed information and to review with your teen and young adult, we have a blog, and October is dedicated to teens and young adult building skills, giving information. So I have a post all about dining out. So when you're away from home, how to do this safely, things to think about, and very concrete steps. How to have the conversations with people at the restaurant, how to plan ahead, even during the pandemic. So we can do curbside, we can order online, we can call the restaurant, we can ask questions, we can look at the menu, we can go over it and then talk with an adult to say, this is what I chose, this is why, what do you think? And for them to have that practice so that they can see where they might not have thought of something, this is a good time to catch it. So there's that safety net. So I'll show you the link, and that is a place you can go to refer back and also to start these conversations. So there is a post all about kissing, and our Dr. McMorris at the clinic, who has these conversations, as all of our allergists do, gave specific steps. So as the parent, the information that you want to share and the information they can read and hear and take in, because we know it's sensitive to have these conversations. We know it's difficult and they aren't real receptive. So perhaps it's another place. They can take a look, they can read it, they can just let that information soak in. So let's continue, and we'll talk about these things in more detail, and I'll show you the blog, and we will continue to build that. So we have weekly posts, and every month we'll have a theme. Melissa? Thank you. Oh, I see we have an audience question. My son is often invited on the spur of the moment to dinner at the home of his friends. He's shy about asking the parents about ingredients. That is really common. So one of the the biggest reasons why it's so risky during the teen years is they don't want to speak up. They don't want to feel different. They don't want to be asking a lot of questions. They'll often tell me, I don't want to be rude. I don't want them to not want to invite me over again. They're teenagers, so they're thinking always, how are other people viewing me? How are other people thinking about me? And of course, in an exaggerated way, and often not a really accurate way. So they will often not say anything and then just sort of go along to get along with really unexpected and disastrous consequences for them. So eating away from home is the time that they are so much more likely to have a reaction. So recommendations would be talking through with your son, role playing. So we want you to be able to go to friends. We want you to be able to go and eat with other people. We want you to not miss out. So let's talk about, if you were there, how will you go about deciding whether the food is safe for you, what you can eat, and how will you talk to the parents so that they know, because you used to be the one that always set that up. So the parents will always tell us, I call the parents, I educate them, I provide information, I make sure that they know the symptoms, I make sure that they know and feel comfortable with administering the medication if they need to. But now, how do we hand that off to our child so that they can do that for themselves? And that transition to, I'm the one that's going to have to assert myself, and I'm going to have to make the plan. So you can role play with your son and have him talk to you as if you were the friend's parents. Have him practice. So one of the things we're going to talk about is practice being assertive. Practice, so what do I say? How do I say it? And the more they do it, the more they see themselves do it, the more it just becomes a little less uncomfortable and unknown. And then when they've done that, maybe it's they can call the family. They could, talk to their friend and say, before I'm allowed to come, my parents said that I have to talk to your mom or dad or who the adult in charge and let them know about my food allergies, and just so that they have the information. So that's the way I have to do it. And then you're just letting them know, I can come and I can be at your house safely, and I want to, but the adults are going to have to know the information that my parents would normally tell them. And, you can make your parents put it on them and have, my mom and dad won't let me because they're nervous. So is there a time I can talk to your mom or dad about coming over? So you're basically asking them to do the practice, do the thing that you've always done for them. And they're going to feel uncomfortable and it's awkward. It's okay. It helps them have real life experience. We have another question. Our daughter has thought about starting a peer support group for other students with food allergy. Is this beneficial? Definitely. One of the best things we can do is connect peer-to-peer support. So if your daughter is in high school, perhaps, or middle school, having that peer support group, because they're going to talk about things with each other that they don't share with adults. They'll learn from each other. Hopefully there isn't they set it up that there's an adult who's providing accurate, reliable information and is a resource, but then giving them the chance to talk about, like, I've never eaten at a friend's. I don't know what that would be like. I feel scared. They'll tell each other things, and it's very normalized when they hear someone else say, no, I'm afraid to do that too. Or I don't know how I'm going to go to college. I'm afraid to live on campus. I think I'm going to have to commute. And then they start talking, and then they see where, okay, other kids feel like I do. And what will we do about that? Because we want to be able to do things in the way that we want to, but they don't know and I don't know. So how can we figure that out with help? So normalizing their experiences is a really important thing we can do. And they will bring up things that are sensitive and uncomfortable that they might not share right away with an adult. So there are excellent peer advisory committees and ways to get involved through FAIR and some other organizations that we'll include in our email to you. So let's just take a look. I'd like to show you our blog so that you can visit it for some information when you have a chance. So it's foodallergykim.com. And I'm just going to share, see if you can see. So Conversations in Coping with Kim, and we're going to continue to put information here on resources, and the blog postings. So we've got tools for teens, really particularly around anxiety, coping strategies, dealing with worry thinking. We're going to have specific suggestions on dining out and how to navigate. And as a parent coach, what are some of my ways that I can move forward? So our first post was your transition to parent coach when there's a new diagnosis. But then we've included some other posts on, so being the parent of a teen or preteen, how will you know how to address the developmental challenges you're facing? So we'll give you the link in the email that you'll get following. And we'd really like you to check it out and to share it, because we're hoping this can also be a place that I can address questions that you bring up, concerns that you have, and things that we can go into more detail that came up during the webinar. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about college planning. This is, of course, a topic of concern for parents, but also for the individuals that we work with. This idea of can I live on campus? What do I look for when I'm looking for a school? What do I look for? What is available to me for support? So some strategies laid out in, so FAIR has a college planning navigation tool that we'll look at the link. So before you consider going to a school, you want to look at what are their food allergy policies? What do they have in place on campus? Is this a school that's given some thought to the growing number of students who are managing food allergies? So do their housing policies and procedures reflect that? Do their dining services sort of accommodations, the way that they handle things, does that reflect that? So before you would do any kind of tour, whether it's virtual or just visiting, some things to look for are what kind of training has happened for the resident advisors and for the dining hall. Do they have epinephrine on site at the dining halls? So at University of Michigan, that was a really important forward-thinking action that was taken a few years ago. And that was at the behest of the Weiser Center, the allergist, meeting with people who could make those changes on campus. There was a lot of training done. So now there is epinephrine, stock epinephrine in all of the dining halls, and there's training done with people there in the dining halls. And that's already helped manage and deal with quite a few severe food allergy reactions that came up there when students were eating. As we will talk about more, the issue is if there is an accidental ingestion, oftentimes they aren't carrying their epinephrine with them. So it becomes an issue of, who am I going to tell? Who's prepared to help me? Am I going to tell anybody? And is treatment going to be delayed because I'm not carrying my medication? Another thing that parents can look at is, so the ADA covers accommodations for food allergy. So you can talk to them about how do they manage in terms of allergen safe food being available in the dining halls. So in housing, can I have a single, if that would help you to feel more confident? Or could I live in a resident hall where I would have access to store and prepare food? Or can I be exempt from the rule of having to live on campus and be able to live off campus, where I just have more options to prepare my own food and be in charge of that? So some of the same things that you looked at in high school around managing exposures, you look at in college, but a little bit differently. The accommodations are going to be a little bit different. So it's not, is my classroom allergen free, but what is my housing? Can I eat? Can I access food? Can I feel confident? So that as a student, I can focus on what I came here to do. And do I feel supported? So how do they support students? Are they receptive? Are they open to working with you to talk to you about your concerns? We have another great question. My freshman son at University of Michigan was given the wrong allergy meal. One bite sent him to the ER. Just recently, it sounds like. Now he has lost a lot of weight and won't eat due to this fear. Of course, following an anaphylactic reaction, there is really a post-traumatic response we often see where people feel very afraid. They'll start to be food averse, start to really limit the diet. And we often see these issues with the relationship with food changing and maybe even weight loss. So the fear around that, if it has been persistent now for some weeks following this event, I think it's always important to reach out, find a therapist who understands, a post-traumatic response, so that your son can process what he experienced, process the fear that he experienced at this unexpected event. He thought he was being safe. He thought that he had been given food that he could trust, that was safe for him, and he had this unexpected surprise. And I'm not sure how the reaction was handled, but whether that added to his feeling of being able to trust or feel safe eating on campus. But talking to a counselor to be able to process the event and do problem solving so that he can move forward and feel like he can return back to doing what he was doing, focusing on his studies and feeling confident again. After a reaction, we always look at what did go right and what did I learn? What would I do differently next time? How can that help my planning? So moving forward, what do I want to make sure I'm doing? Or what could they do differently? So in talking with the dining hall, how could we use this as an opportunity to perhaps strengthen the practices? So part of the process always after a reaction is looking at what went right. And even if it is just what went right is you survived, you are here. So even though it was an awful thing to go through, you were here. So we can move forward and look at what to do with this experience you had. So what went right? Perhaps he was carrying his medication, or perhaps they had the medication available for him. What went right is also that he recognized he was having a reaction. So he was familiar with his symptoms. So that's huge. What did he learn? Anything he can look at from that growth perspective. What did I learn? How is this going to make me more capable and confident moving forward? So he will be in other situations and other unfamiliar situations as a young adult. What will he know to ask? Or he's done all the right things and he still has a reaction. Okay, I had an accidental exposure. What do I need to make sure? I'm always going to have my EpiPen. I am always going to have my Benadryl. I'm going to make sure people around me know I have a food allergy, and I'm going to ask for help. So sometimes we talk to teenagers, young adults who think that they might have eaten something, they start to feel a little sick, and they wander away. Maybe they go back to their room. Maybe they walk out of the dining hall and they walk down the hall. So several of the situations that were able to be successfully assisted by dining hall staff was when students had left. They started to feel sick but didn't tell anybody. They observed this, and because they've had training now in food allergy reactions, they checked in, and there was a realization that, you know, the student needed help, so the student received the help they needed. But that seems to be an impulse, is I'll just go and I'll see what happens. So how can this embolden me to be a person who consistently carries my medications? And I was reminded of what my symptoms could look like. And I hope he had the experience of recognizing, so the medication didn't hurt as much as I thought that it might. And in the end, my medication worked. It stopped my symptoms, it resolved them, and I'm still here today. So even in this situation where your son had this very unfortunate experience he had to go through, this is the way I would talk to him about it, is really looking at part of the process is, what can we take from it? How is he going to be better for it, even though we never wanted him to have to go through that? But he is certainly going to come away with some ideas around how can I help myself moving forward. We want him to feel emboldened and not stay in the fear. So talking with a counselor can be extremely helpful. We want him to move through that and move into the empowered where he can take action. So let's talk about this. Things that we can advise our teens and young adults to do that are very concrete and easy. So our allergists are always at every visit talking about, are you wearing medical ID? And if they say no, asking why. You know, what seems to be the issue, and what are some ways, what are some workarounds? So do they want to wear a bracelet? Do they want to wear a necklace? What is appealing to them? Now they've got great stuff that's like really, it's not metal, it is like the sports bands. They have all kinds of different. So looking on sites with them, let's pick one that you think you would like. So if you've never wanted to wear it in the past, but now you're driving, now you're away from home a lot, I really need to know if someone comes upon you, they are going to know, and so that they can help you, so that they can recognize the symptoms as being possibly related to food allergy. So if you were a person with diabetes, if you were a person with epilepsy, you would want people to know that so that they would not misinterpret your symptoms and they could assist you. So the same thing for our young adults with food allergies. You can put your allergy in your phone for emergency, so they don't need to have your passcode. And if you list it in the health information, it will be there. So let's say EMT comes on the scene, they're able to see if you're not able to speak really well, or you know, there's any reason that that can't be communicated to them instantaneously. They can see, okay, this person has a life-threatening dairy allergy, they have a life-threatening peanut allergy. Okay, so they're going to put what they're seeing. What if you had a car accident? You can't speak. Well, they still need to know you have a food allergy because they need to take that into consideration. It's just one important factor about you. If you have asthma, that's also important. So you want that information available so it can be considered in case there's an emergency. There's lots of different ways now to carry your epinephrine auto-injector. So there's flip belts that are very tight up against your body, and they're a thin material. Runners use them. You can put an inhaler. You can put your Auvi-Q or your EpiPen. You can carry a cell phone. You can carry your car keys. But You can wear it all day long under your shirt. Nobody will know that you have it on. So when you're at school, so people will often say, well, I carry it in my backpack. Well, do you have your backpack when you go out to dinner? Do you have your backpack when you go on a Saturday and have pizza with friends? Do you have your backpack when you are not at school? If you don't consistently have something that you do, whether, like we know carrying your car keys, you put them in the same place, you have them with you. We need to think about it that way. What am I going to do consistently and routinely so it's not even a thought I have? Oh, do I have my EpiPen with me? Well, yes, I do, because when I'm getting dressed, I put my flip belt on, and it's with me whenever I'm going to be leaving the house. So whether it's school, whether it's sports, whether it's a friend's house, whether it is I'm on a car trip, I need to have that with me. And if we leave it up to chance to remember, we won't remember. So you need to treat it like it is a routine thing you do. I brush my teeth every day. I get dressed. I make sure I have my epinephrine. If it's not routine, it's not a habit, it's going to be forgotten. So another way to decrease risk and to embolden our young adults to be really skillful is get them on some sites where they can see information that's pertinent to them, that speaks to things that are on their mind, and that help them develop the skills they need. There's a great site, as I mentioned, on FAIR's site for navigating college. There's also a fantastic, through Allergic Living, a digital magazine that they produced on anxiety and food allergy. They have excellent coping skills, strategies, interviews with teens and young adults, interviews with parents, interviews with allergists, psychologists, clinical social workers, talking about so leading up to and in this phase of life, what are some things, lessons learned from other people, and ways to work through things, doing things in a more independent fashion. So that is an excellent magazine, and we were gifted, a generous donor provided us the means to allow us to distribute it to all of our patient families. So we are really helping families to understand access to reliable, accurate information is very important, and it's a conversation starter. So you could ask them to take a look, you could take a look, and then you could talk about it. So when you're in the car together, when you're at dinner, it gives you a launching pad for some of these sensitive conversations. They talk about kissing, they talk about alcohol, they talk about socializing with friends, dining out, having to assert yourself, dealing with that feeling of, I don't want to feel different, I don't want to be embarrassed. Other young adults saying how they dealt with that going into the workplace. So check out, it's allergicliving.com, and then it is their anxiety guide. You can purchase it for $7.95. It's downloadable, and then it really is an excellent resource. And they're never too young for you to take a look at it, because it helps you to think ahead. Okay, we're in this moment, but we're preparing for the next developmental stage. So let's really summarize some things parent coaches can do. So we've talked about some things, and I really always want you to leave with concrete tips and strategies, so you feel this hour was well spent, that you have some specific things that you can bring up or do yourself. So in terms of summarizing the 4 steps: practice, planning, problem solving, and prompting. So as a parent coach, we look for every opportunity to help them practice the skills that they're going to need. And that can start in elementary school. So I'm grocery shopping. So I want you to find so you're telling me that you would like to have cookies for the weekend. Okay, I want you to take a look. You choose a cookie that you think is safe for you, and then show it to me, and let's talk about why you picked this one. So you're going to start to get the sense of how much they're understanding about what they need to look for. Did they miss something? Did they misunderstand something? So did they pick something that didn't have their allergen as an ingredient, but it's produced at a facility that produces things with peanuts or tree nuts? So even though it is not an item in the ingredient list, they need to understand there is also this. So if it may include, or if there's shared equipment, that's different than produced at a facility that also produces things. So they need to understand, what are they looking for, and what have they been advised by you and their allergist. Planning. So we talked about role playing, walking through different scenarios. Practice, practice, practice. What would you do if? So if you were in this situation, how might you handle that? So this problem solving becomes really important. We want them to be thinking through before they are in the situation or the crisis. How would you handle? Or I was wondering, you said that you're going to go sleep over at your friends this weekend. So I'm wondering, when his parents serve dinner, how are you going to handle that? Have you thought about what you're going to say to them? Have you thought about what you'll eat? And if their pat answer to you is always, I'll bring all my own food, I'll be fine, or I won't eat, we need to prompt them beyond that, because they can't go through life never eating anywhere other than at home. They're going to be in situations where they're going to have to be able to choose a safe option, to talk that through, to be able to figure out, because it is not reasonable to think I will always be able to have food with me at all times. I will never have to eat anywhere. And I'm really going to miss out on things if I think the only way I can stay safe is to eat food I prepared at home, or, an adult prepared for me. That's not true. You can learn to choose food at the grocery store, to cook meals. You can learn how to ask somebody, oh, so I'm allergic to sesame and dairy products. So can you tell me what the ingredients are in the dinner? Or up front, if they say, so your mom or dad have mentioned in the past you have allergies, can you tell me more? And being able to say, these are my allergies, and then talking through. If they ask you, they may be less informed if they haven't raised somebody with a food allergy. So, and that means I can't have any dairy in any of my food. So they may think, you just can't have a glass of milk. Or sometimes people aren't so informed about what it means to have a life-threatening food allergy. They might think more food intolerance or food insensitivity. So you want to clarify. What that means is, if I eat dairy or sesame in any form, I could get very sick. I could have a fatal reaction. I could have an anaphylactic reaction. So I would need to have my medicine, and it's very serious for me. So could we talk about, are there any options I could have that we could figure out might be safe for me? Because this also might happen. So what if you want to go to camp overnight or on a field trip? Your class goes to Washington, D.C. for a field trip for 2 nights. Yes, it might be reasonable to think you can bring some food, but it's probably likely that you're going to have to navigate being able to eat in some unfamiliar settings. How will I talk about that? What should I ask? What do I do? So all of these things bring back the importance of carrying the epinephrine auto-injector all the time, because it is important that I do my best to avoid cross-contamination, avoid ingesting or accidental exposure. But in case, I need to know what my symptoms are. So you're role playing. So let's talk through what might it look like if you had a food allergy reaction. Another thing that can happen is trouble differentiating between anxiety and a reaction. So sharing with them, how might those two things look different? What are the different symptoms? And there will be more on my blog about that, differentiating between those, because that can be very difficult. So we're going to take another question here. How do we know our 13-year-old is ready to be less supervised when it comes to food allergy? We don't want to hover or stunt his independence, but we're fearful of transferring responsibility from us to him. So I think that's a fantastic question. And really the answer is we do it in increments, small steps, try small things with practice. So if there are some things you think he might already know, test it out. You know, ask him to choose the foods to make a meal and tell you why he chose what he chose. Did he read the ingredients? How did he interpret those? And how would he go about, knowing for sure before he ate that these foods were safe for him? So have him walk through with you his thought process. Talking to him about, so if you're at a friend's, what are you going to ask? What are you going to do? How do you know whether or not a food is safe for you? Talk to me about what your symptoms would be so that I know you're going to recognize them and not misinterpret or ignore them. Let's talk about who you're going to tell. So somebody who's with you should always know about your food allergy. So the adults around you and your friends. So do the people around you, have you told your friends? Have you talked to your teacher? Have you talked to your coach? Are you willing to talk to your friends' parents? So in these ways, we're starting to give some leeway to see how are they thinking about things, what action steps did they come up with, and then we're able to add and to kind of question and help them walk through. And then with practice, so setting up some safe scenarios. Can they go to a trusted friend's house? Can they eat with a trusted teacher at an after-school activity? So they have some practice, but with a plan in place. So let's summarize. Parent as coach, we're really looking at how can we help them understand that it's serious, that there is risk, and we want them to be taking a cautious yet informed approach. We don't want them to be terrified all the time. We don't want them just to avoid things because they aren't sure how to do them safely. We want them to find ways to cope with their feelings. We want to build on their resiliency, which is through practice, talking, ongoing communication. If we model a calm but cautious approach, that goes a long way. They can also, there's Allergy Aware Canada has courses that are free and online that kids can take, younger kids and teenagers and young adults. And they're excellent courses that are really topical to what's on their mind. So we have a few minutes left, and I'm going to take 2 minutes and offer a mindfulness practice. We end every webinar with an opportunity for some kind of stress management, some form of working with our feelings, noticing how, kind of where our mind is focused, where our thoughts are, and helping to kind of calm, settle, and ground ourselves. So if we can take a moment, just noticing how it feels to breathe right now. noticing how it feels to be sitting in your chair, bringing your mind's focus to the feeling of your inhale and exhale. So dropping down out of that thinking mind into more of your physical self and just being present. We can use the breath as the anchor, just noticing the rise and fall of the breath. You can close your eyes or gently lower your gaze and just take a moment to bring your full focus and concentration to feeling yourself breathe. When your mind wanders, and it will, gently bring it back. Find your next breath and bring your full concentration back to the inhale and the exhale. As you continue to notice when your mind has wandered away, just gently bring the focus back, telling yourself, I'm breathing right now. I'm just breathing. And this is something that you can do any time of the day. You can do this when you're in class. You can do this when you're at work. You can do this when you're having difficulty falling asleep. But this ability to calm and settle is really important because managing the daily life of food allergies is stressful. It brings up unique challenges. You need to have a way that when you notice you're feeling very reactive, scared, very worried, you have a way to help yourself feel calm, that you can step back and say, okay, is there a real problem? Is there a real threat? Is there something I need to address? Or am I just feeling really worried? Am I feeling nervous? Am I feeling anxious? Am I doing something new? And that feels uncomfortable. So it helps us to decipher, is there a real and immediate threat that I need to address? Or am I feeling nervous because, some situation or circumstance that I'm in? So for the folks that brought us their questions today, we're very appreciative. Please continue to give us your questions. So we will meet again in November, and we have fabulous guests to be sharing their life experience as two people in their 20s, so Haley Wise, who's just joined our advisory committee for the Weiser Center as our student rep. We have two student reps at all times, and she's just joined. She has a passion for sharing and talking with other people with food allergies to help them get to do the things that they want to do, learn skills, and navigate new challenges. So she's here on U of M's campus as a student rep, and she will be joining to share her life experiences and some of the skills that she's gained. We also have Daniel Caden, who is graduated from University of Michigan, now a working young adult who is navigating living on his own, employment, the workplace, travel, living away from home. And he also was a student rep with us and, left, graduated, and has gone on to go into his profession. So he will be my guest for the majority of the time. And he has wonderful skills he's gained over time, experiences that he has shared with us during his time as a student representative, to really help others learn from things that went well, things that didn't go well for him, experiences that helped inform how he continues to do things now in his adult life, which is a really remarkable opportunity to hear. So if you have a young adult, if you have a middle schooler, a high schooler, someone who's talking about, college is their next step, listening to Daniel and Haley talk about, they were once where, your young adult is, they were nervous or scared, or they were doing new things. They have a lot to share with us about how to make that as successful as possible. So on behalf of the Weiser Center and our Michigan Food Allergy Clinic, we thank you for joining us. We hope that you'll stay in touch. You can find us on Twitter. You can check out our blog, and we'll be here every third Thursday of the month, 1 o'clock, with a new topic every month pertinent to parents and people living with food allergy. Thank you.